Hi. Um, so it looks like we're live again, and welcome again to this discussion and our live challenge, day 2. Um, really hope that you've been able to do some of the exercises, but no criticism if you haven't. And just to say that I'm Yoni Joe, and I'm an adopter and I'm an adopted adult, and I'm also an adoptive coach, and also work with foster carers. And I'm really passionate about adoption and fostering and supporting children in care. So welcome. Keeley, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, folks. I'm Keeley. I'm based in Glasgow. I'm a mum of two very small children myself, the biological children, and I've worked for about 14 years as a play therapist, and I've now run my own private practice, supporting parents and women during pregnancy when they're struggling to, um, and it's great to work with Yoni because we've both got a real shared interest. A lot of my work was with children in various forms of care, kinship, foster and adoptive placements, or children identified at risk. And so it's great we've got this common passion about play and about supporting children who find their lives taking these kind of journeys into different kinds of care. Um, and, it's great just to be able to talk to you again about play and just see how you're getting on with your play challenge.
And yeah, no, my interest really is about trying to demystify some of the discussions about childcare and looking after children, because I think sometimes conversations are very theoretical and a bit out there, and sometimes don't give all the tools that carers can need. And certainly, sort of now my girls are in their late teens, and children are adults in their 30s. I've certainly thought about some of the things that perhaps I wish I'd have known when I was first considering parenting, and sort of learning to incorporate children with all their demands into my life and my partner's life. So that's what we're about, and it's really good to have you join us. And welcome to anyone who watches when when it's recorded. So if you do get a chance to, please comment and say replay so that we know that you've watched. Um, if you're on live, then if you can put an A for adoption, F for fostering, or P for professional, that would be really helpful. And maybe an emoji if you've had done the challenge and how it went. Give us an idea whether it went well or not. Um, Certainly, Keeley, I can tell you had a busy day today in terms of play.
The weather's been so bad here that we ended up being like I've been Mrs. Arts and Crafts today. I've been baking cakes, making edible sand, kinetic sand, Play-Doh, and a bit of water play as well. And then, for me, a lot of tidying. Comes with the territory of some of that kind of play, but the kids seem to have had a great day. So,
Oh, that's great. And I didn't manage to persuade my daughter to do much with me, but I certainly enjoyed. Actually, it's the first time I've done anything even remotely creative for a long time, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm definitely going to do a bit more going forward. Um, and I think what I wanted to say was, and again, it's apologies for the sort of slight indulgence in that I've been reading particular um, books around vulnerability by Brene Brown, and she was talking about somebody that I looked into a little bit more. Um, because it sort of really played into some of the themes that we've been talking about. Um, a gentleman called Stuart Brown is a researcher, and he started off researching into a particular situation in America where a guy called Charles Whitman had killed, been involved in one of the first mass killings. And he was initially researching violence, but what he found was that there was a common lack of play in the violent people that he was studying, including Whitman, and that a restricted experience of play or a lack of play actually, he felt, deprived them of the chance to view life in a positive and or an optimistic way, or to test alternatives and to test out building their social skills. And I just thought, we talk about play, and I think sometimes adults think it's really not that important, or a bit childish, and therefore we shouldn't be attending to it or spending time doing it. And I suppose it just reinforced for me how actually the consequences of not playing could be so significant. Don't know what your thoughts are, Keeley.
And I think that's really interesting, because I think it just shows so many of the values of play and how much children actually get out of play, that they're testing and learning so many things about themselves and others through play, and what happens when the children don't get the experience of play. And obviously that's like a more extreme case of it, but
Yes.
It's really interesting. And there will be children out there who they're not very good at socialism, they're not very good at empathizing with other people. I think and it may be a really good question to actually say, well, how much time do these children actually get to play, to actually kind of immerse themselves in the experience and get and gain those skills through play. And it's interesting, Yoni, how it's about that the kind of formation of relationship, and how his relationship with his family was very rigid and stuff, really impacted, on his ability to kind of form as a whole person, and led to what he did, and that's what our course and all our things, all our live sessions have been about. It's about the importance of play and how you can use it to, forge and build up and make really good relationships with your children. And play is innate in us, but we, just because it's there, it doesn't mean it's just going to pop out. It has to be encouraged a little, but it will come out. About 6 years ago, I actually, when I could actually listen to the radio in the car and listen to something intellectual, not just. There was an article on it. It's a great article, and it was about like young people in the 1970s. And some of them was like talking on the article as adults, but they were tagging, graffitiing the trams on the New York subway. And if you've seen pictures, and absolutely littered with graffiti, and actually it's kind of wonderful art. But what kind of pricked my ears up was one of the gentlemen said, they were so deprived of play as children and as adolescents, and that was their way to play. And I just thought, gosh, that's so powerful, isn't it? There is this innate, urge to play, because it is so important to our development. But sometimes children aren't kind of placed in, an environment where play is permitted or encouraged and stuff. So, play is really important. It's not just like you said, a childish, immature thing to do. That's just, it's just play. There's actually so much more to it than the actual activity itself. So much is learned from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even in the animal world, play is used as a way of testing out and learning skills, and that adults passing down that knowledge to their children. So you can imagine and understand that it's really important in humans as well.
Yeah, yeah. Octopus are great at playing, or should I say, octopi. And they really enjoy play actually, and they must get a lot of stimulation from it. So
It looks like Kaylee, thank you for your emojis. Looks like you had an interesting time, I think, doing some art by the look of it.
yeah. Okay,
So
so
what? Go on.
go on, Yoni. It's okay.
No, I was going to ask what you were going to talk about today, in terms of some of the themes that are coming out.
Yeah, so I just thought today, because we started our play challenge, I just thought I might just talk about some of the traps we as adults maybe fall into when we're trying to engage in play with children. And actually, maybe that's also about, Yoni, following nicely from, your conversation about how we kind of create a nice environment for play as well.
Okay.
So I'll just do a wee bit on that, just because it might be something, because you're doing your challenge this week. It might be like some of the stumbling blocks that you come across. So I just thought a quick chat through that might be helpful. So I guess the first one, and we did touch on it a little the other day, but it was about forcing the children to play when they are not ready. So I know sometimes our time can be quite precious, and we might feel like we've got to get through like several things, before we're kind of ready to play. And then it might be like, right, okay, I've done all that. I can squeeze a bit of time now. So you're like, right, come on, let's go and play. And then they're not ready.
Right.
So try and find it. Don't force it, because then you'll just take all the joy out of it, and then you'll kind of really lose the essence of what it's about. You're trying to create connection and make a pleasant experience. And if the children are kind of like, I guess it's like you can't drag a horse to water, can you? But if you if you're doing that, it's not going to be an enjoyable experience. So just trying to find time where that suits both of you. So then I think it's more easy then to make the connection and kind of make that kind of time enjoyable. Because there's a lot to learn from play, but it shouldn't feel like you're taking them into a classroom. You just kind of let that kind of happen. When it the time is right. And I guess especially these days with mobile phones, don't let distractions interrupt the play. So I think if you're going to be in the play, just really engage in the play. Turn that phone off and pop it in another room. For for while the duration of while you're playing. If there's someone else in the house, if the doorbell rings, can they go and answer the door instead of you having to come out and do that? And just really kind of focus and give it your attention and be present for the children in the play. I guess we'd feel the same, wouldn't we, if we're in the middle of a conversation with someone and all of a sudden they just started like looking at the phone or just dashing off. And we just kind of feel like let down and like the other person wasn't really interested in us. And it's the same for children. And I know we might have important things, but just put that to one side and just make the play the most important thing at that moment. I think this is one that most adults do, and I think it's partly because maybe as children we were just exposed to this one a lot, and it's adults taking the lead in play. So you basically come in and and you're like, right, let's play this, let's do that. Why don't you do this? And we become like really like we become like the directors of the play. Or the child is, I don't like that. No, I don't want to do that bit. And so we take over the play, and then we actually just inhibiting the child's kind of ability to kind of develop and flourish through the play. And the course that Yoni and I teach is all about letting the play be child-led. You learn so much from watching the children play and take the lead, and it's so empowering for them to be able to kind of be at the center of the play. and kind of choose what they want to play and how they want to play it. So just allowing that child-led play can be really great, and you can learn a lot from it, and it can be a lot of fun. So it's just kind of taking a step back from maybe the play we had when the adults just came and butted in and told us what to do. It was either that or it was just you were just left to your own devices, I think, and you
it's quite it's quite a challenge, isn't it, to do that in a really consistent way.
Yeah, I think so, and I think sometimes when I remember certainly when I first started training as a play therapist, we were thinking about being, because it's a counselling, like person-centered and allowing the child to take the lead in the play. You thought, gosh, if I'm going to ask in a minute, what do I say next? It's going to feel like it's going to break up the play and kind of stop the flow of it. Sometimes just stopping and asking that, especially when you're not sure, like which direction they want the play to go in. Like I don't know, you're playing some kind of baddie. Well, what do they want you to do next? And so just to ask them actually can be really great, and it doesn't actually disrupt the flow of the play or the enjoyment of it. But it's a skill, but the more you practice it, the better you'll get. The next one I wanted to talk about was actually, I've spoken about this gentleman before. He's a really eminent play therapist in America, Gary Landreth, and he has these rules of thumb. So one of them is grant in fantasy what you can't in reality. And again, I think this is it's partly that kind of stopping the adults butting in a bit. So, but what he means by that is, let's say you're with your child and they're painting the picture of an apple tree and the apples are purple, right? That's fine. Just let it be. It's not the point to come in and interject and say, actually, darling, apples are normally red or green. Children do need to learn colours and they'll know, but children know when they're actually kind of in imaginative play or they're just pretending or they're in fantasy. They do know that. So it's just allowing that to happen. Now, again, it's that kind of stopping the adults kind of intervening and just allowing the children just to be and just to kind of explore, and they're testing a lot when they play, they're rehearsing a lot of things. So, they're just wondering what that might be, and the same goes for if they're doing role play or telling you a story, maybe they're going to tell you the story that last night when everyone was asleep, a dragon came and knocked on the window and it took them to go and see the grandma or something. And it's like, it's not the time to poo-poo it and say, well, actually, dragons don't exist. I mean, they might not, but within that fantasy, there's an expression of something, isn't there? A wish, that maybe they're missing their grandma, or something. Actually, I listen to my eldest. I mean, he's still a preschooler, but sometimes he tells stories that seem really quite fantastical. But when I listen to it, I'm like, oh, he's talking a little bit about a TV program we saw there, and then that bit is about something we chatted about yesterday, and that bit is something that happened a couple of months ago, and it becomes like a mishmash of different things, and it just comes out in this quite like this fantastical story. But just roll with it and let them do it. It won't do them any harm, to kind of indulge in that fantasy or be indulged in that fantasy. It's just the children are just, they've got great imaginations, they're being creative, they're being playful. These are all skills that really help to make a successful child and a successful adult.
Definitely.
So that's the time in play just to roll with that fantasy. When you get back onto your homeschooling, that's when the part sets in and apples are definitely red or green.
Keeley's just asked, hi guys, how would you recommend encouraging a child that was reluctant or apprehensive to lead the play?
Okay, so I think it's just, I think again, it's about the child's previous experience about what play is, and they're also about their kind of confidence in kind of letting themselves be seen or expressing themselves. So, for a lot of children who, have gone on that journey that's led to being in foster care or with adoptive families, you know, that expression of emotion or showing their true self, even having a sense of what their true self is, can be really kind of difficult. So I think it's just about taking it really gently. And today, I mean, I know this is a slightly different circumstance, but I was playing with my youngest. We were playing with the edible sand. One tip there: don't turn your back when the whole toy sand is in front of them. Out came the humour, but she's not yet got the capacity to kind of really lead play. But I'm still able to do it by just offering choices. So if you've got a child who's really reluctant, just start gently, So say, would you like to do this? And then maybe offer suggestions, like maybe you'd like to, paint it this color or that color, or and so I would just start just like really gently, and maybe it's just about starting and just offering a couple of choices, and then as you kind of progress, hopefully they kind of build the confidence, and I would kind of also kind of reflect that when they did make choices, I would be kind of like saying, wow, you made a really good choice there, so you've really thought about that and you've decided, to make this. So really just kind of like supporting and, through like encouragement when they do make choices, as well. And that should just really help them to kind of develop, just start slowly. And, and I think it's just about, in other times, it doesn't have to be in play sessions, but just you being playful sometimes can just help, just to show that it is okay. You don't have to be a serious adult or a serious child all the time. Sometimes you can be playful, silly voices, the odd little silly kitchen dance, things like that. Can just encourage children to kind of dip their toe into being playful.
Oh, sounds good. And I think music and dance is such an important sort of thing for children and adults, isn't it? And sometimes it's undervalued, I think.
Absolutely. And even songs like, I've got a friend who's a musicologist.
Oh wow!
And she teaches stuff. She also teaches like a children's like music course in America. But even when you're just like making up silly words to like a song, so you might be using a tune from one song but putting your own words to it, or just doing things like that. It's actually really helping your child with the development too. But I think it's also just about showing that like music and dance isn't something you should be embarrassed about. So many of us are like so embarrassed about singing and dancing, especially when it comes to like public stuff. But to the point sometimes where we're even like embarrassed about doing it in our own houses, in front of our own children or partners. And I think if you can just kind of I guess it's like, as we've spoken before, Yoni, about that vulnerability with Brené Brown. If it might not be something that comes naturally to you, but if you can just bite the bullet and go for it, a bit of kitchen dancing, can be great. It's great fun. I think it's the message you send out, isn't it? When you're being or singing or dancing, it's saying this is okay and it's fun, and it's about especially in these times when there's not much else to do. You've really got to generate the fun yourself. So go for it.
And she talks quite a lot about wholeheartedness and almost, I guess, seizing the day, enjoying life in the moment, and really being present. And it's interesting that what she says is that sort of being cool and being self-conscious is a complete antithesis of that. But that music and dance and art and creativity is a really important part of being wholehearted and being in the moment. there's a real connection.
Absolutely. And as you do this play challenge, it might not be something, it might end up being something that's not necessarily, like set out like, right, come on, let's do this. And, your wee one's up for it at the same time too. It might just be something, especially if it's like imaginative play or active play, it just starts spontaneously. So I don't feel like when you're doing this play challenge that has to be something that's like very structured and you've set time aside to do it. It might just kind of happen quite spontaneously, or your child says something and you're like, okay, let's roll with this. Just, let's see where it leads you to. And you might have just found yourself all of a sudden just done like 15 minutes of imaginative play, or you've made something great, or you've been active for 20 minutes together. So just it doesn't have to be structured. It can just be spontaneous too. And it does. It leads to like a real kind of a great connection and a sense of warmth between you.
Okay, thank you. And Kaylee says, thank you, that was really helpful.
Thanks.
I think there was another question, wasn't there?
That's right. It was someone who's, I think the wee one was a bit reluctant to engage in imaginative play, I think.
Yeah, I think it was if they're struggling to be imaginative or.
Yeah. So I guess if you have a child who's kind of struggling with that imaginative play or to be imaginative, I think a lot of children who maybe that you are now parenting have had often experiences where imagination is dangerous, or they can't distinguish between fantasy and reality. So particularly if you're now parenting a child, or you're going to parent a child who has witnessed or experienced physical or sexual abuse, and maybe there's been some dissociation there to cope with that. That can really kind of impede on their imagination, because they really do struggle between fantasy and reality. And I've noticed actually a lot of those children, and probably it was like a bit of a coping strategy at the time. I'm talking about like children who are slightly older, like 8, 9 plus. They often kind of end up playing like a lot of computer games, and probably because it's just safer to be in the bedroom with the computer on and maybe some headphones. And they find it really difficult to kind of actually know when they're in the computer game and when they're in reality. So I've seen that. So that might be one reason. Another reason is age. Sometimes children are just maybe too young, or just developmentally not quite there with imaginative stuff. But I guess if you've got a child, who kind of comes under that, who kind of struggles with imagination, then I would say just start small again, but not necessarily to start with imaginative play, but just kind of showing imagination. So just demonstrating it yourself. So you might be out and you might just say, oh, look at that cloud. It looks like a toadstool, or oh my gosh, it looks like a dog or something. The other day we had a coat hook fall off the wall, and I noticed actually it looked like a diplodocus. The roll plugs were like legs, and there's like a little tail, and like the bigger part of the hook looked like its neck. So I was like, then I was like messing about with it a bit, like, oh, it looks like a diplodocus, maybe give it a little voice, And I think it's just trying to capture those things that are happening every day, where you can just apply a little bit of imagination and just start slowly with it. So you're not trying to take them fully into imaginative play yet. That might be too much, but just showing imagination and just kind of putting it out there in a real gentle way. And then one of the activities we have in the play challenge book is so I think we just call it a doodle. So in like pairs, like one of you would close your eyes and just scribble, and then the other one then has to try and find like little pictures they can make with that scribble. So as you kind of build up, you maybe kind of do something like that. So they start to kind of use their imagination a bit there, and just gradually build that up until you kind of feel like your child's ready just to do a bit of more imaginative play. But just take it slowly, because some children do struggle with that.
And I know some parents, and particularly maybe birth parents, who don't see any benefits in imaginative play, can really undermine or criticize the child for any kind of imagination, or see it as lying. I know I've worked with carers who maybe, rather than seeing it as something creative, see it as not telling the truth.
That's right. And like, when it comes to fantasy as well, there's 2 points there. One, whenever children are saying stuff like that, even though it sounds like a lie, there is nuggets of truth in it. And two, that's partly because it sounds a bit like a lie sometimes, because children, when they don't understand something, take the bits that they do have, the pieces of information they do have, and they make it into something that tries to make sense of what they've overheard or what they've seen, and they've not been given a proper explanation for, and so they make it into something that seems plausible to them, but to adults it maybe just sound like fantasy or just nonsense or lying. But if you really listen to a child, there is truth in there, even if some of it sounds a bit off the wall. There is truth in there.
Yeah, and I guess, like you say, sometimes they don't have the frame of reference almost for what's going on. So they don't understand the context of what's happening. So it's then very difficult to put it into a description.
Yeah. Or I remember an ex-manager of mine, her parents had divorced when she was quite young. And for many years, she actually thought it was her fault because she'd broken by mistake one of her mom's favourite cups. And that just shows you just how, like, I think, honestly, she must have been like about maybe 2 or 3 at the time, and she broke the cup, and then her parents divorced not long after. But that's how children's minds work sometimes. They think they've done something, and it's caused that. And also, let's remember too, for a lot of the children who have come into the care system, they'll have had adults who would have blamed them for things that have gone wrong. It's your fault that I'm like this, or I've done that. So that they've already taken on that kind of burden of responsibility that actually wasn't theirs anyway.
Yeah, and sadly, some families can really target a particular child within the family, can't they? I've certainly worked with families where that's happened and been played out, which is so corrosive for the child. So it's really important for them to come out of that environment. Okay, it's really interesting, Keeley, and I know we talk about play so much, but there's so many different facets of it that are so important in being a parent and bringing up a child. So thank you. I'm going to talk next week about the course, and hopefully get a bit more feedback on that, how the play challenge has been for people in the group. So thank you very much for your time. Keep on playing, hopefully. And if you've not done one, then do give it a go, because it is fun and it will help you either prepare for a child or build your relationships with your child. So thank you, and see you again. Thanks.